Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
Tara, why does it look like you're playing a tug of war on both sides right now?
I've got a cat that I'm entertaining with this thing at the end of a wire, and a dog that I'm entertaining with scritches on my left.
Tara's multitasking
This
today.
is my life.
Yes.
This is my life.
Well, a bit of multitasking. So this is a science fiction movie podcast. We talk about sci-fi movies every episode. And this episode, we are continuing with our 70s sci-fi season. And this is a film called The Ultimate Warrior from 1975, starring Yul Brynner and Max von Sydow, which... First of all, let's get this out of the way. People know that I enjoy some wrestling from time to time. And while it's been a long time since I've bothered with the main big company, WWE, it's impossible not to at least acknowledge the fact that the Ultimate Warrior is a pretty well-known wrestler, okay? Now, he didn't come until after this, but people are probably expecting me to crack some jokes, right? I'm just going to get out of the way now. I acknowledge the name. Let's move on. Let's move on with our lives.
I did not make that connection. I don't know wrestling.
Yes.
Or the WWF. Oh, wait, that's World Wildlife Fund. I know that one.
Are you doing a bit right now, or did you know it used to be WWF and got changed because the World Wildlife Fund sued their asses?
No, I had no idea.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, that's why it used to be WWF, and then they had to change it to WWE because the pandas got upset.
People were donating to the wrong thing.
Yeah, billionaire Vince McMahon was laying in his pockets with people's donations. Oh, what's this? $50 in the mail? Oh.
Or the panda. I wonder if I have a wrestler named Panda. No, I didn't know that was the name of a wrestler, but I did think that this was a weirdly titled film for what it is.
I mean, this is before the wrestler, so it's not like they were, if anything, the wrestler might have taken it from this. I don't think so. Because there was other types of warriors in wrestling, so I think the idea with the wrestler was, I'm the best, I'm the Ultimate Warrior, because there was the Road Warriors, and there was so on and so on. Yeah, so this movie is a post-apocalyptic film set in New York City in the distant future of 2012.
I love old future. That's my favorite thing.
The premise of this basically is that we're in a post-apocalyptic world where a plague has taken out the majority of the population, and we have our 1%, 2%, whatever it is that's left of survivors, and we focus.
Do we know it's a plague?
Yeah, I think there's one line of dialogue he says it's a plague.
I think they refer to like the plague or blight that took out the foliage, but I didn't know about like the crops and stuff. But I didn't know about people. I thought it was a bit unclear about what happened to all the people.
You might be right. I took the plague as affecting humans as well. But then again, no one in this movie is worried about getting sick. So either they all know they're immune and that's why they've survived, or you're right and it's just the food supply went away. And it revolves around Max von Sydow's character runs this sort of camp, this kind of like enclosement in a building in the middle of the city. Yul Brynner plays this character of the name of...
Carson,
yes. Who is a bit of a fighter, and they want to hire him as kind of their security, essentially. Because there's like another gang of bandits who are like always try to like steal from them, kill them when they're out in the open and things like that. And that's basically the gist of the movie. I mean, I think that would be spoilers, and as always, we're starting spoiler free, and I'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers later on. But that's the gist of the movie. So we got a couple of big stars here.
Yeah, definitely. Max von Sydow and Yul Brynner.
Yeah.
Does Yul Brynner only have like 2 costume options? Which is like shirtless or black on black?
You may have a point. I've not actually seen Yul Brynner on a lot of things, really.
Okay.
Because I've seen...
Well, Magnificent Seven. Have you seen that?
Yes.
And that is, I think he wears like the same outfit. I think he actually wore the same outfit on Westworld that he wore in that movie for that reason. Like he was typecast to play the same type of cowboy in Westworld.
Mm-hmm. Which I've also seen.
And in this movie, I mean, he doesn't have the hat, but like it's the same outfit.
I wonder if he even got outfitted on set. I wonder if he just brought his own clothes from home. So no, this is what I wear.
And then in this movie, he's like half shirtless, and then he's also shirtless in like The King and I and The Ten Commandments.
Anyway, that's the gist of the movie. I'll ask the question. Tara, this is a first time watch for both of us, because I don't think either of us had heard of this until the last couple of weeks. So, Tara, did you enjoy? How do you feel about The Ultimate Warrior?
I did enjoy it. I actually was surprised I hadn't heard of it before. Seems like a lot of movies are kind of centered around tropes that this movie may have started. I'm not sure, but seems to be an early example of this post-apocalyptic survival, like set up a blockade or a compound and then protect yourself from the evil people who are just desperate and do bad things to people. And it's almost like a zombie movie.
Kind of, yeah. I was definitely thinking about Last of Us a little bit, just in the way that they
yeah, so have I, even though I didn't finish the game, but like even a lot of the set designs, I'm like, I think I played through this level.
Yeah, the early parts of Last of Us certainly start in a city area that's kind of, I mean, it's a bit bigger than this, but it's the same similar kind of idea where the city's kind of abandoned, but there's this one little section that's closed off that's got people in it, which is kind of cool.
I actually really like this movie.
I would say I really liked it. I'd say I like the mythology and the ideas that it has. I think like a lot of these movies that we're talking about from the 70s, like it has the core ideas of really cool things, but the actual like story and execution of it is kind of just, you know, okay, underwhelming. Like it's just it's the basics. Like it's like the 70s is this really weird experimental time where most of these sci-fi movies have really cool ideas that are going to become great things in the hands of other filmmakers and whatever, you know, down the line. But in the 70s themselves, it's just these weird, almost like prototype movies where it's like, okay, we're presenting this idea of this, you know, post-apocalyptic city and people in like, you know, kind of gangs, if you will. But
yeah,
you know, there's not much more to it than that. Like, I felt like, because it's worth mentioning.
Are you just upset that there's no Bush in this movie?
Of course, if she can't bring up the Hays Code because there is Bush, she'll bring up the odd lack of it, and then mention the Hays Code that way. No, I was not upset that there was no Bush in this.
I did not bring up the Hays Code. I brought up the point that you've made many times. The 70s full Bush, but we didn't get one in this.
There was no Bush.
We didn't
even
get nipple.
No, well,
I mean,
let's count Yul Brynner.
Brynner.
Yes,
this is a movie for the ladies.
No, I think it's a solid. Like I enjoyed watching it, and I liked seeing kind of, and I wish it did more with some of the stuff that we'll get to in spoilers. But like, much like some of these other movies, it feels like they've got the startings, the beginnings of what we think of as the post-apocalyptic city, and the types of tropes and the type of characters and encounters we're going to have inside that setting. But like a lot of these movies, you'll notice that most of these films we've talked about from this 70s sci-fi season have been very short. They've all been about 90 minutes long. It's almost like, and I think they've all had this thing, most of them, I'm not counting Death Race in this, Death Race was kind of its own thing, but like a lot of these other ones we've been talking about, I've had this thing where the movies have felt like it's all been set up of what the premise is, and then it gets to the third act very quickly. There's almost very little in the way of like an act two, where it feels like there's a progression in the world because the story isn't that in depth. It's just very simple, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it does mean that, like, you know, I couldn't help but think of like all the much better stories I've seen in these settings, you know, from later.
I don't know that I've seen a lot of good movies in this type. You know what it reminded me of? Like, it reminded me of a whole season arc of The Walking Dead, but in 90 minutes. And 90 minutes felt like the right amount of time, to be honest.
Having watched 2 and a bit seasons of The Walking Dead, that show was insanely padded out after the first couple episodes and made it tedious as hell to watch. So yeah. I concur with the general point you're making there. I'm on board.
But I really liked the movie. I thought just like all the other ones, like the actors that they get for these films are way too good for the B movie that they're making. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they give it their all, and I think the talent is undeniable. Yeah. And like Sydow is so good in this movie, and whoever plays his daughter, I know she's in Star Trek. She's in the Next Gen. You haven't seen her yet, though. She plays Derek's wife. Not Spock's mother, but like his new wife.
Joanna Miles, I believe, is the actress.
She looks really familiar, and I don't know what else she's in. You know, there's another guy in this movie who I was like, what do I know his face from? But he's like super young, and I can't remember his name. But he's married to the girl with the baby, and he is in The Watchmen. He plays Hollis Mason, or the first Night Owl, and he's like old in that movie. So it was bizarre to see him. Like I couldn't think of anything else from his IMDb that I had seen except for that. So I hadn't think I recognized him from.
Oh, I know who you're talking. You're talking about Stephen McKay.
Yes.
Who I've seen a bunch of stuff. You know, he was in Pontypool not long ago. I actually didn't realize he was old enough to.
Well, he's really young in this, but he's got like, I don't know, like a recognizable face, because I'm like, I know that face from something. Maybe I know him from something else other than Watchmen.
He was yeah, he's been in tons of stuff. He was born in 1947. He actually just popped up in a TV show last week that me and Connor tried from Netflix at the time of recording. That is obviously by the time this goes up, this will be a while ago. He was in a TV show on Netflix called The October Faction, which was absolute garbage, that pilot. I do not recommend it at all.
Noted.
He was in a flashback scene in that first episode, and everything about, and I've seen this actor I've seen be good in multiple things, but he was terrible. Everyone was terrible in that show. So which is whereas I'm assuming it's not really the actors' faults that they're all bad. It's the script and the direction and all the other things that go into making them look rough. I had no idea he was quite this old, though. That he was old enough to be, you know, an adult in a movie from 1975.
Yeah, and a young adult, though. Like he's fairly young in the movie, I think.
He's 28.
But still, like, I don't know, like really recognizable. Like when watching, I was just, who is that?
Well, you say that, but I didn't recognize him, and I know this guy.
That's true.
So I did not even think.
I mean, it could have been from the Watchmen movie. I haven't watched that movie in like 10 years.
Because
it's the only thing I could think of when I looked at the IMDb.
I know his face quite well now. Like I know, like, you know, from the 2000s and 2010s.
You know the older version of it.
Yes, I know older man. Oh, I didn't think he was quite that old. I thought it was like, I thought it was maybe like in his late 50s, early 60s from like those things. But he was born in 47, so he's actually quite old.
Guess he's just doing all right.
Yeah,
eating lots of greens or something. Who knows?
Yeah, he's from Nova Scotia. I feel like people from
Nova Scotia.
Yeah, exactly. See,
they're well preserved up there. All that back bacon and ice.
Yeah, I even recognize that. Good eye, because it didn't even occur to me that this was someone I knew. But now you've pointed out who it is, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know this guy. Like I've seen him in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, he's that guy for sure. But he did like look really, really young.
Yeah, that's it.
I was surprised that I recognized him too. I was almost proud of myself.
Max von Sydow, on the other hand, is someone who I knew was old as he is, because he's like 90 now. He's like ancient. He's an ancient man. Because Max von Sydow was a young-ish man in The Seventh Seal from 1957. So even in this movie, he's already like, you know, pushing 50.
Yeah, but he looks. They aged him in The Exorcist, right? Because in The Exorcist, he looks 90 also. That's
true. Yeah, he does. He looks ancient in The Exorcist, but
that was 2 years before this movie.
He
because I was surprised. I thought he actually looked pretty young in this movie.
He went into a Lazarus pit in those 2 years. I'm sorry. Do you know what a Lazarus pit is?
No.
It's what Ra's al.
I was just gonna play along.
Yeah, so it's what Ra's al Ghul uses to stay immortal. He keeps getting into the Lazarus pit and he comes out young again.
It's a comic thing. I thought it was like a biblical thing. I should have known better.
What I really liked about the movie, and what I wish it did more with, is like the stuff where they kind of use the buildings, like, because obviously what this essentially is, it's kind of like, think of Mad Max or think of any, like, you know, wasteland style movie where you've got camps and you've got the rival gang or whatever who want to get into the camp, right? But normally in these other movies, they're in like they're in a wasteland, they're just surrounded by flat land or hills or desert or whatever,
or water.
Yeah, but this is completely different. This is like, no, we're surrounded by buildings, and we see, you know, the villainous characters try to, like, you know, use makeshift, like, sort of ladders and ramps to, like, get across buildings and stuff, and it's like, yeah, this is a concrete jungle. It feels like a jungle. and that's kind of
Yeah, I actually thought it
unique.
did a pretty good job of making it feel like an empty New York City too, because a lot of movies, like even later ones, try to get this effect, and you're like, I just don't buy it. Like I don't know, like it just seems like matte paintings. I mean, this one like clearly used just pictures of New York, but in the wintertime, so everything's dead already. You could still see like snow on the ground for a lot of the photos, but and a lot of the sets, like I definitely recognize the set from the Universal Studios backlot tour that had been redone. But I really like the subway set a lot, and like you're right, just the everything is done on a rooftop, and like people who are like scaling the walls of the buildings to get up or down. How they utilize like the dumbwaiters and stuff to get around, and it's really cool. It's really unique.
Yeah, I wish there was more of that stuff, because I think that's the stuff that I really get into. Because the actual Yul Brynner, you know, Carson's like sort of like for a movie called The Ultimate Warrior, it doesn't really show us that.
Bizarre title.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
It's not really his movie either. Like
Yeah, and he also has a really weird entrance, which we're going to have to talk about in spoilers. But his entrance is so bizarre and then irrelevant to the rest of the movie. It's I don't even know how to begin with it, but it never really gives anyone an arc, at least not like to like a great extent where like someone really learns something about themselves, or like overcomes something to, you know, it's purely a movie about survival and about the continuation of like, you know, the human race. And I mean, that's fine, don't get me wrong, but it does make it a little bit distant, and kind of what I was saying before about lacking the, you know, just more of a real central story to kind of like drive all this, because what it has right is all the details. It has all of the stuff around the story right. There's just the story in the middle is just not really all that there. I mean, it's there a little bit. It's the core details of like what we're trying to do. But
I never found it boring though. Like I was still
that's fair.
engaged the whole time, and I thought the fight scenes were really good too. There's a lot of like I want to say like action, but it's kind of like brutal fight scenes. Like there's a lot of uses of like fire and stuff in while they're fighting that I thought was really cool, and like I think the score was pretty good for like, especially the third act of the movie. Like I found myself like really, you know, white knuckled at the end.
Sure. No, but the fight's not bad. Like it's definitely of its time. Like, you know, like you feel like if it was done today, like the fighting would be a lot more intricate,
be faster maybe.
Yeah.
But like it's a lot of like single shots where they last. There's not a lot of cuts in it, which I think is helpful. There's obviously there's some cuts. It's not all one take or anything, but you do get to see like Yul Brynner fighting.
Yeah.
For a while, you know, 3 guys and then like a cut when someone gets hurt or something.
Yeah,
but
that does.
Good. I like the fighting.
It has the effect though of letting us see that it's not actually that impressive, right? Like he's not. You know, it's like movie
I
fighting.
don't know, some of it was pretty impressive, I thought.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. Like, it's not bad. Like, it's, you know, it's 70s movie fighting, but what it isn't is John Wick. You know, like it's not.
Yeah, I mean the choreography is more of a, I don't know. Yeah, it's more like maybe a Western movie choreography, or like even a Western TV show or something like that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Not just because it's Yul Brynner, but just it feels like that in terms of how it's shot and the actual action. Which
I would say Star Trek, but I think it's better than that. It's not Yul Brynner versus the Gorn or anything.
one of my favorite fake looking things that they always did in the original series of Star Trek was the double axe handle thing that Kirk always did.
Exactly where you're going.
Yeah, he always did that.
I think
the
the
back.
Haymaker it's called. I'm not sure.
That always makes me laugh when I see that in the original Star Trek, because it's like no one does this in a fight.
Yeah, but it always knocks people out when Kirk does it to someone in like the shoulder blades. They're done. It's his magic move.
So you tell me it's not just Spock who can knock someone out with the shoulder blade? You know, Kirk can do it too. His is just a bit more aggressive looking.
The Kirk falcon neck pinch.
It's more like a caveman clobbering someone than it is a pinch, but
Yeah, like there's no reason why this would be more effective than this. In fact, it would clearly be less and probably hurt your hand doing it much more than a fist. But whatever, it looks cool.
Does it?
Maybe so the kids, like when the kids recreate it at home, they don't actually hurt anybody. Who knows?
No, maybe that's the tactic. Yeah. It's child copy proof.
Exactly.
Yes,
kids do try this at home.
Yeah, don't say that, because one kid will kill another kid somehow, some way, and you will be blamed. I think the atmosphere is at its best when it's at night and there's like sneaking around going on. I do like, much like Yul Brynner himself, I think the villain has a good look to him, but he's maybe not built up enough to really like make him a character per se. But he does have presence, and the final
I agree.
showdowns.
I like the carrot villain guy. He's got a cool look.
Yeah, Carrot's his name, by the way. She's not describing like an orange appearance or anything like that.
He definitely has red hair, but like it's not like obscenely red.
He's got a big scar on his neck.
Yeah. There's a story there.
Yeah.
They don't explain it, and I like that.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a 3-hour director's cut somewhere that with the backstory of Carrot and his scar.
I'd watch it.
So, yeah. And I think, its endings is the simplest, most obvious thing the ending could have been, and all these things. And this is kind of come back into what I said about this movie and some of these other ones that we've watched, like Demon Seed or like Terminal Man. Like, they feel like these prototypes for movies that would go on to do better versions of them in some way or other. Arguably, this one, is there a movie I can think of that does this type of setting better? I don't know specifically. Obviously, Last of Us.
This movie had a lot of Waterworld in it, I thought. But I wouldn't say Waterworld is a better movie. I don't think Waterworld is as bad as everyone says it is, but like, it's got a great show at Universal Studios. A great soundtrack.
I've only seen Waterworld once, and obviously it's science fiction, so despite the fact that I've already reviewed it before, I'm going to have to do it again on this show at some point.
Nice.
The shorter of the two cuts, whatever one's shorter, probably theatrical. You can watch the longer one if you want, but
Waterworld has like the dry land, like this movie has like a promised land that this expert has seen before. A lot of the barricades look like if there's just floating in water, it would be the same. There's scarcity of food.
I wouldn't necessarily think of Waterworld when you say that, though. Even Boy and His Dog had that, up over the hill. Land Before Time has that. Like, it's a pretty common trope. And Land Before Time's not even science fiction. It's just
the promised land for Moses and his people.
Yeah, sure. Yes, Red Sea parting. Yes.
Another Yul Brynner movie. My people go. That might be The Simpsons.
But back to The Ultimate Warrior. I keep forgetting the name of the movie because the movie does not suit the movie.
The name of the movie is ridiculous. Like, that's definitely going to take it down a point.
Yeah, because all right, so I think we're at the point there where we're going to give the spoiler warning. I will give thanks to our Patreon producers for the month of, time of recording at least. So I was going to say month of January. It's not going to be January by the time you actually get this. But thanks to David Short, Alison and Forday, Sunday Palacios, and Tyler Hess.
I hope when people watch this, they'll be like, why is Tara's hair so short?
Yes. Also, Tara's going to tell you more about Patreon right now.
That's right. If you want to check out bonus episodes of what we do, you can check out our Patreon page and donate as little as $1, and that Patreon page is patreon.com/MileFuzzTV. You can get bonus episodes of the Transfer saga that we're going through. We've probably done all of them by now, who knows. Plus like Judge Dredd, some Mystery Science Theater adjacent films, Rotor. So, yeah. Plus future ones that I don't know yet.
Yeah, future ones. Yes. I was looking at Curb Your Enthusiasm gifts today, and I was doing the big vagina one. There, that's what I was doing to distract you.
Why?
Because I was looking for a crib gift today to respond to something on Twitter, and I couldn't find one that I wanted. But one of the ones that kept popping up when I was scrolling was Larry doing this for the big vagina hands, and him and Jeff.
Please don't use that while I'm talking.
So yes, full spoilers for the Ultimate Warrior from this point on. So the movie starts and we see the city and we whatever, and we get people.
Well, we see the city, but we also see like New York City 2012 with the two towers in the background. Like, ooh.
Oh, I haven't even thought of that. No, you're right.
Yeah, World Trade Center is still there. Like, like I love old future stuff, but there's something a little somber about seeing 2012 with the World Trade Center.
Yeah, well, we can't really blame the movie makers for not.
Of course not, but
predicting
it's like a little.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. It's whenever you see the New York skyline from like before 2001, there is kind of this bitter, sort of sweet kind of quality to it. It dates a movie now, right? Like there was a time when that wasn't a thing, but now seeing those two towers dates a movie. Yeah. And they've built more skyscrapers since then, and I don't recognize any of them. Like none of them stick out the same way that those two towers did, because they just were so much bigger than everything else. They just stuck out. But yeah, so the start of the movie, we get that this little colony has like a farm on a roof, and this is important. This is really important because they have special seeds that are immune to the plague that stops everything else from growing, so they can grow food. They can grow tomatoes and a few other things that no one else can. They
have a real Norman Borlaug on their compound. That's not a character, that's a real person who does genetically modified crops and has saved a lot of lives. You should look him up. He's a real hero.
Okay, I mean, there was a chance there, a very small chance that was a Star Trek character.
No, it's a real person.
And we get that, Max von Sydow was like saying to his like the number two man, Cal, not to be confused with Kal-El of Krypton, who would then be Superman.
Two very different references. I don't want to feel like I'm better or anything, but...
Oh, there goes Peter again, referencing comic books. Oh, what a nerd.
We have very different definitions of the word hero.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you trying to argue that Superman is not a hero?
He's a type of hero.
A superhero.
Mine saved like actual lives, but whatever.
Superman saved some real people. He's inspired people.
You're right.
I bet he's inspired many a little kid to become a firefighter who's been on to save numbers of lives. There you go. Superman saved a bunch of people.
I hope you feel better.
Why are you making me feel bad for making comic book references? What is this shit?
It's just, it's a thing I have.
Like you're not the nerdiest person ever.
I am wearing my Mystery Science Theater t-shirt from 1997.
What was I getting to? Okay, yes. Cal and Max von Sydow are having a conversation about how there's this mysterious man standing topless down the street. And it's Yul Brynner, who's just standing there with his eyes shut. He's just standing there topless. And he's like, all right, we need some more muscle. I'm going to go and try and recruit him. He's probably a fighter because he's out there in the streets, in the rough, mean streets of New York City, in the post-apocalyptic world. He's probably good at what he does.
No fear.
So I'm going to go down and talk to him. So we get this big sequence where he goes down with like a protection. He's on his own. He takes like 10 men with him who are all like around him. And it's like this little security detail. Because it's dangerous outside. Once they go outside their gate, which by the way, I love that their gate that they have, this like a drawbridge gate, is literally like an old fence that they've just sort of like, rigged up to a bit of rope. Like it's not like...
It looks like it's like an old like bus also, or like a school bus, or maybe even like a prison transport bus, because they have like two drawbridges. Like one is like it's like an airlock system, so they have two gates. One rises, they go in, and then the next one rises up and they go out, and you could see like the blockade of all the different pieces of metal and parts of other cars and things. It's cool. I really, really like.
Yeah, everything's made out of stuff that's around. It's not like they've designed anything. Everything's just like, okay, what was around it we could turn into
it's
something.
all scrap.
Yeah. But they go and talk to him, and your brother does not respond to him, and Sydow's like, hey, we're down there and we've got some food we can offer you. We can give you extra portions if you come and like act as like a security enforcer or whatever, and yada yada yada. Makes him a big offer. He's like, okay, you've not said anything, so I'll just assume that's a no, but if you change your mind, if you reconsider, we're down 2 blocks this way, just come and see us, you'll see the gate. And on the way back though, they get attacked. This gang, who we find out is Carrot's gang, because actually the opening, I actually glossed over what the opening scene was. The opening scene is actually 2 men hunting down like some chickens in like a barn.
Pigeons.
It was pigeons. You're right. It was pigeons.
Yeah, they're chasing the pigeons around. Which I love birds. I don't like pigeons. They're the only bird I don't like. But the people are like eating pigeon is so gross.
Hey, it's post-apocalypse. You got to do what you got to do. I know.
Of course, the pigeons are the only thing that survive.
Pigeons and rats, and cockroaches. Those all survived. And this is the first time we see Carrot, the villain. But like. So obviously Brynner shows up and saves them. I thought this was a little bit weird how quickly like they were in danger and how he came in to save them. And the reason why I thought it was weird is because there was no real like sort of like explanation as to why he was standing in silence with his top off, and it never comes up and is never referenced or even like it's never a thing again. Like we don't talk about it.
I read in the trivia that on IMDb that the director really wanted to use like this Chinese actor who is known for his martial arts skills, and but because he had worked with Bruce Lee like a couple years prior to make Enter the Dragon, same director, but wanted to use this other like actor who's well known in China but not in America, and Hollywood said no, you can use Yul Brynner because he's the name that sells tickets, and he's like ambiguous in his nationality. He plays a lot of different types of just non-American, non-white people. And but so I could see if it's like a monk or something, like if they were going for that originally, like that would pass a little bit more.
Yeah, but
maybe if he's like someone who's meditating. But I think because it's Yul Brynner and he's just like standing straight up stoic. He's not like posed or anything. It's just like a statue.
Well, it's not just that. It's that when he does come and saves them, he immediately just starts talking to Max von Sydow like a normal person and never goes back to being quiet again. He talks normally for the rest of the movie. He even smiles and jokes and things.
He's just looking for a guild. I've done it.
So Yul Brynner joins the group. It's just kind of assumed that he is now, and he's there for the cigars, which Max von Sydow's stockpiled, and like he's going to help him, and like, but they get to talking about who he is and where he's from and where he's going, and he's going to an island off the coast of North Carolina because he's got family there, and it's a completely isolated little area that's away from all the dangers of the post-apocalyptic wasteland. And they kind of talk about a couple of things. They mention that they've heard stories of people eating each other and things like that. That this is like that's the point we've reached now, is that cannibalism's
it's working. I was just trying to get the camera to stop flashing. See what happens when I take it away? Okay. I just have to wear white.
He you can see Sydow's like eyes light up. He's like, oh, this island, you say. And we get the impression that this place is kind of unsustainable, that like it's getting harder and harder. The people around them are getting more dangerous. They need a bigger garden, things like that. They want to try and not repopulate, so they want to, they want the seeds to kind of like multiply by creating more seeds, and they don't really have the gardening space on the roof to really accomplish that. So, and obviously at this point I thought, oh, maybe the movie's going to be about them trying to like migrate this entire camp like to this island, and that's going to be the journey that we go on.
Yeah, like a convoy.
But instead it's not. It's Max von Sydow's just got, okay, my daughter who's pregnant and her husband are, well, is Cal her husband? I don't know, but I mean they seemed like it was kind of close to
baby daddy.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm going to take them, and so they because he can plant the seeds and whatnot, and do all these things, and I want her to have a good life with her baby.
Yeah, the implication is there's just not enough food to take everybody on the journey with them. And
it actually does this thing where Max von Sydow's character, while you understand from a cold hard logic that he's right, that for the human race to thrive and survive and like have like this food supply and all that because even later on when he's leaving, he says to Yul Brynner, he's like, look, if it becomes between saving my daughter or the seeds, save the seeds because they're more important. So he is harsh on himself as well, but he is kind of this harsh reality of like the way he treats the camp. As he has this plan, he's kind of lying to them. He's pretending that everything's going to be okay, and it does actually result when he does actually sneak them out with stuff, and everyone realizes that he's given some supplies to them. They storm his office and beat him to death. Like, it's very vicious.
Yeah, there's a lot of death in this movie. Like, every time somebody has to leave the compound, like, sure enough, the rival gang is there to like instantly murder them. And it's there's a lot of brutality in it. But like, we see a woman try to find powdered milk for her baby, and she thinks that this bakery has like an area that hasn't been broken into yet, and she's sure that there's going to be something there. And then her and her baby daddy also like go in there, and it's just like a bunch of old receipts and bills in a box, and sure enough, people show up and kill them, and there's a baby left behind. I don't know if you want me to keep going.
Oh no, I mean, it's just, the baby, like, when they hear it crying and it's kind of being used as bait, so they send in Yul Brynner. And what's interesting at this part is
I thought that was interesting though, because that Max von Sydow like hired Yul Brynner to be the muscle to protect them, but he doesn't like send him out.
Well, he doesn't want him to, because he his plan now is he wants Yul Brynner to take his daughter on this trip to like save the seeds and like start a farm basically on this island that's cut off from everyone else, and therefore theoretically is more safe. And so Yul Brynner stands up and says, I should probably go and like try and rescue that baby. That's kind of like why you hired me. And people have been watching me get like 2 servings of food like every time at mealtime. I have to kind of go and show that I'm like doing what I'm here for, because they'll get suspicious, like, even though like you're worried that if I go out there something may happen to me before this plan can even happen. And
I mean, everyone in the camp is just listening to a baby cry, and they know what baby it is, and so like, why do we even have this guy if he's not going to at least try? This is what he's here for, to save our children.
This goes back to what the hell is he doing at the start? Like, he's just stopped and done this. But he says he's traveling, but the movie starts with him just standing there, and he's been standing there for a while because they're looking at him through the binoculars going,
they say 2 days.
Yeah. What's he doing? Is he recharging? To go back to the Superman reference, he's
solar powered.
Yeah, is he solar powered? Is he breathing in the Earth's yellow sun like Superman, because that's what fuels him? Like, what's going on? Are you really going to get
a plant?
Are you really going to...
He needs photosynthesis.
Make your face at me because I made another reference. Like, we started making comic book references this episode. It's just a running thing. You're going to have to deal with it. Do you know, I actually saw a movie about 5 or 6 years ago.
No.
Shut up. Called... what was it called? Was it the... It was about this kid. It was Jennifer Garner and Joel Edgerton. And they couldn't have a kid. And they were basically given a kid who grew from like a plant. So they have time with this child who's actually like a miracle like plant child. It was this really weird little like feel good like movie. But there's a scene in the movie where they're playing a sport.
It's a Disney movie, isn't it?
I think so. It was like, I think it would be football.
Like Odd Timothy, or I can't remember.
Yeah, but I think we're playing football as in soccer, and he's doing really shit. And there's a moment in the game where he literally realizes that because he's a plant, he can get energy from the sun, and he just sort of like opens his arms out and like closes his eyes and just soaks in the sun for a minute, and then he plays really well. And I just remember laughing in the theater because he's like Superman.
You like this movie? It's probably on the Disney Plus app.
It probably is. It was alright for what it was. I mean, I didn't want to see it. I think I was either dragged to it or it was just the only thing playing that I hadn't seen or something like that. Anyway, Yul Brynner goes running in to save the baby, but the baby's already dead. One of the the gang members is like holding the baby, and it becomes this kind of ambush where they come after him. And so we get a bit of a scene where he kind of goes up the little dumb elevator and dumbwaiter and drops it drops like the weight at the top down at the guy, and we hear a scream, and he's like. It's actually quite an impressive little sort of parkour scene where he's kind of climbing down the side of the building.
I thought so too, and I looked for it. I know he has a stuntman, but like there is still a good scene where he's like climbing down the building, at least like from the second story down, and it's just Yul Brynner, and he like starts running. Like, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's like Tom Cruise.
There's not enough running away from like walls of smoke for it to be Tom Cruise. That's the difference. But so that's just kind of the big set piece in the middle of the movie. And then after this, there's a whole sequence where, and this is what I was alluding to earlier, where we see the bad guys kind of like put these like makeshift ladders like from window to window, going like back and forth between two buildings to get up to the top of the roof, and then like get over and steal the fruit. And they actually end up killing Cal. This is kind of the dark part of the movie where he dies, and then
they throw him off the side of the building. It's brutal. And Sydow's daughter doesn't want to go anymore, so Sydow actually drugs her so that she'll be knocked out, so that Brynner can just carry her until she wakes up, and then she's got no choice but to stick with him because now it's too dangerous to go back. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of plot in the movie to describe, because at this point, like, they go on this run, as there's characters fighting in the camp about the food supply and all that, because there's one guy who actually, because this is the thing, like, it comes into jeopardy because after they storm Max von Sydow's office and kill him, one of the guys who was fighting over the food earlier on actually goes over to Carrot and tells him, hey, there's this guy, they've got seeds and they're going this way. So he kind of puts the bad guys on the path of running after Yul Brynner and the daughter, and that means that, okay, they might actually jeopardize like the future of like using these seeds, like it may actually ruin everything. So we do have a good villain. We have a villain in the sense that he's really like you're really going to screw up the one chance we have seemingly of humanity like surviving. Like, good job. But so we get some scenes in the tunnels. There's actually a pretty good kill scene in here. It was a very Jason Voorhees sort of death. Yul Brynner like picks a guy up and puts him on like a hook. It's like a clothesline hook. I thought that was pretty entertaining. I was into it. I thought so too.
I was into it.
That one was. You're right. It is kind of like Voorhees.
Yeah, it was a slasher movie type kill. It wasn't a lot of blood. There's not a lot of blood in this movie. It's very light on blood.
No, there's some like tomato paste. But, like, there's a lot of tomatoes in the movie, so maybe they just had tomatoes in their mouth.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, he kills a couple of other henchmen. It's around this time where the daughter actually starts to give birth. Like, she's which I thought was an oddly quiet childbirth scene. Because
she was trying, like, she was told that she couldn't make a sound, so she had to give a silent birth. Yeah, but it's
kind of lucky that the baby was silent, because this is the thing.
Well, until you hear the smack. You hear the smack on the butt.
It's not like
baby starts crying.
It's not like the audio, like, because I mean, if it'd be one thing if it just muted the scene, right? It's not that though. You can hear the other sounds, you can hear the movement and stuff. It's just the baby's dead silent. I was like, this is weird.
Well, the babies don't cry until they like, get the little smack, so they know to start breathing. That's when they cry.
And then there's the showdown, because he scares off a couple of the henchmen away, and it's just there's just Carrot left. So we get a Carrot v Yul Brynner like one-on-one fight. Which is pretty.
We wanted. Which is Arnold versus Predator.
Which is pretty brutal, because Carrot's got this like chain with a metal ball at the end of it that he's kind of whipping around, and we get to the ending of it. And there's this pit, which we already saw one of the henchmen like go down, kind of unceremoniously, to his demise. But it gets wrapped around Yul Brynner's like wrist. And then the bad guy Carrot falls down this pit, so he's dangling from Yul Brynner's wrist via this chain. And Yul Brynner like reaches out and gets like a hatchet.
Soup is coming out of his wrist really hard.
Yeah, the red soup. But he reaches over and gets a hatchet, and he's trying to like hit him away so he'll fall and the weight will be gone. Then he tries cutting the chain and it's not working, and it's like, oh shit, he's going to have to cut off his hand, isn't he? He's going to have to cut off his goddamn hand. So he...
I was like, no, even though like the effects weren't that good for it, like just knowing what he was going to have to do, he had to sacrifice. I just like, no. It was good. It was a really tense moment.
So he cuts off his hand. Carrot falls to his death. There's rats like right next to his face. And then
I read in the trivia that one of the rats defecated in his mouth during the film. Cringe.
I don't know if I needed to know that.
Well, now everybody knows.
Anyway, the movie ends. It's basically we get like a still image montage of various locations that they've presumably went on their journey to North Carolina. We end on a still image of them looking at an island, so they've made it presumably, and then the credits start to roll.
Well, we see them on the beach. I don't know. Did you see an island?
Yeah, there's an island in the distance.
Oh, I thought it was just a beach, because I was thinking like maybe the island wasn't real. Not that there aren't islands off the coast of North Carolina, but like his island paradise was made up.
I mean, I think we expect that twist because of everything in the last 40 years. I don't think this movie actually hints that that's a twist.
No, but I mean, this movie is, the beginning of the tropes. So, I mean, although there were some of them in A Boy and His Dog, but the post-apocalyptic tropes, a lot of them were, I think, started in this film too. Like the other, I don't say tribes of people, but like other compounds of people who were like evil and eating, like resorting to cannibalism, and the good ones that are like trying to survive. Oh, we didn't mention there's like a guy who's the one that goes to the other to Carrot to be like, hey, this is where these people have gone. He was originally stealing, and then he blamed another village member for the theft of the tomatoes, and like nobody stands up for him. Like Max von Sydow, Baron, is saying like, who here will vouch for his character? Like, well, they're all saying that they see you on the roof. He's like, yeah, a lot of people go on the roof. And he said, well, who here will vouch for him? Who here should vouch for him? And nobody stands up for his character. And that results in him being like brutally beaten by the rest of the compound, and then like bound up, his hands bound, and a bag over his head with like bells around it, where he gets thrown out of the compound like into the wild, where the other tribe will just hear the bells and like pick him up and presumably eat him. Like that was super rough. Like just the whole turning on your own person and not standing up for somebody even though you should. And it was a little like Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, I thought.
It kind of
like when somebody gets accused of something, like nobody wants to, everyone's just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw him on the roof. And
it kind of actually makes you think that a lot of this camp aren't worth saving.
Yeah.
That maybe they don't deserve to find this paradise.
That is what I was thinking, and I thought it was a really good scene.
Yeah, no, it was a very standalone scene almost, actually, because the whole like someone stealing something in this scene, like just two back-to-back scenes in the middle that are just kind of on their own. So which is why I didn't necessarily think about it when I was talking about it. The real
payoff is just the guy getting his comeuppance in the end when he goes to like rat out the people who are escaping, and he immediately gets killed once he gives out his information.
Yeah, Carrot's not a merciful dude. He's
no, he like burns him to death.
Yes. It's boiling acid. That's a reference to a bad movie. I won't say which one because Tara will make fun of me for it. So
and Robin? No, Batman Forever.
Yeah, Batman Forever. There you go. See, I knew you were a nerd too. Haha, you can't deny it.
Yeah, I like Batman movies. Almost all of them.
You don't like that one though, right?
I don't know. I haven't watched it since I was a kid. I definitely liked it when I was a kid because I just didn't know.
Yeah, well, kids are stupid though, so that's fine. Whatever.
I also liked 2001 when I was a kid, so who knows?
I actually did not.
I liked colorful Batman villains like Jim Carrey and Two-Face.
Interesting. I actually didn't like 2001 when I first saw it, when I was like 12, 13. It wasn't until I watched it again at about 18 that it clicked with me. But that is a story for another episode.
When we do it.
When we do it.
Eventually.
Yeah.
It's a 60s movie, so it won't be part of this.
No. That's one of the few science fiction movies that predates all the stuff we're doing for the 70s sci-fi month.
It has a 70s vibe to it.
It looks more 60s though.
You know,
Costume, set design, it looks more 60s.
Okay.
Now, if you're saying it's ahead of its time, then sure, yeah, 2001 Space Odyssey, I will absolutely agree with you, it's ahead of its time.
Definitely.
So, hey. But that's the Ultimate Warrior. It's, like I say, like some of these 70s movies are like, they're really simple in terms of their plot. It's almost like, again, I said at the start, that they get like the core ideas and then they just kind of like do the most basic idea version of that idea possible. And it's not until later that we get the more intricate ideas with the maybe the better core stories and stuff like that. But I loved the location. I think my favorite part of this movie was the location, this idea of like the jungle inside the urban city. Like I liked that a lot. You know, people could pop out from any building anywhere. And yeah, Last of Us is the main thing that I think of when I think of this type of setting. But yeah, it's good. It's real good. I mean, I enjoyed it. Like obviously you come in, it sounded a bit more positive, but I don't want it, like, because I did have fun watching it. I like watching this sort of stuff as like a time capsule of saying, here, this is where we were in the 70s. And there's a reason why this movie's not really that remembered. People don't really talk about it that much.
I'm actually kind of surprised that it's not more well known. Maybe it's just not something that got around very well.
Yeah,
not a lot of people saw it, so it just kind of got hidden. But it seems to be like, you know, a movie that a lot of movies nowadays, or at least in the last 10 years, take a lot from.
But are they taking it from this though, or is this already taking it from something else?
This is just setting like the tone of what to expect. Okay, and maybe I'm just thinking of like Walking Dead. There's a lot of Walking Dead in this, and like without the zombies, just like Walking Dead, if there were no zombies walking around, so you're just dealing with awful people.
I'm not entirely convinced this is the first one to do a lot of these tropes, though. There could totally be something else earlier in the decade that did some of this stuff. I mean, maybe the specific city setting is unique to this, but I don't know about anything else. But I mean, again, I'm just kind of theorizing because I don't... Because I've never heard anyone talk about this, though.
Never. No, this movie, and I looked it up on IMDb, and when I searched for it, the Rotten Tomatoes like thing came up for it, and it's at like 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, and even the IMDb is like 5.7 or 9 or something. It's not a well regarded film at all, but I don't see what's so bad about it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's a really easy watch. I think it's kind of fun. The suspense is there. The score is really good, and the acting is great.
But this is
a good movie.
But this is why I say that I don't necessarily think this is the movie that a lot of things take their tropes from, because, like, I would have heard about it. We would have heard about it somehow, because you think about anything else that, you know, movies take their ideas from, their basis from. Like, we hear about them. We hear about what effectively started the slasher genre. We hear about what effectively started, you know, I mean, Mad Max 2.
Well, I don't know. Like, are we really fans of post-apocalyptic survival films? Or, I mean, you're a horror slasher fan. Like, you know where those start from. But, like, the post-apocalyptic subgenre of film, like, there aren't, I don't know if that's a real niche that people are like, I must see all of them.
Well, no.
They don't tend to be very fun.
Yeah,
I mean, this predates Mad Max.
It does, but Road Warrior is definitely the template, though, that most follow. Like, you know, they're not following this, they're following Road Warrior.
Well, I mean, even Road Warrior, like, is mostly a boy and his dog.
Yeah, but no one remembers the boy and his dog. No one knows about it. Like, that's not the one that inspired people. Road Warrior is the one that inspired people that came after.
Okay, but doesn't that go against the point that you made about the movie? Like,
What
about
point?
it not being remembered because it probably didn't start these, because it didn't start the tropes that had been done before.
Oh, I'm making a separate point. I mean, I don't know if it is the movie that started these tropes, but I've never heard of it before, so it makes me think it didn't, just because I've never heard anyone talk about it, or at the very least, this specific stuff, the specific stuff that's in this. At the very least, like, I think there was probably books and stuff that did it way before this movie.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I mean, hell, even the
There's like a Canticle for Leibowitz, and
but what about
I guess
what about I Am Legend? I Am Legend predates this.
I Am Legend. That's the one I was trying to think of, but I don't know how old that book is.
It's older than this because there's movies about that movie before this.
It is older than this?
Yeah, there's literally movie adaptations that predate this.
Okay. I think this movie was pretty fresh and new to me. And, the things that I thought about that are like this film are like 90s and after.
This is the thing. I'm not convinced that anyone who made movies in the 90s that had these things has ever heard of this movie.
Well, that's okay. Like, this movie's just ahead of its time. That's all.
Oh, sure. Like, I just, like, I feel like if it was something that was actually influential in any way, shape, or form, it would have somehow come up. Like, even Boy and His Dog, I did, like, 5 minutes of, like, looking up a couple of, like, reviews and, like, things online, and I got quotes from George Miller talking about it in the context of Mad Max. Like,
Sure,
nothing for this. Like, nothing came up. No one.
I'm honestly, I'm surprised that that's the case, though. I mean, I haven't seen this movie or heard about it either, but I'm wondering why it just kind of got swept under the rug and people don't really know about it. Maybe it just didn't get distributed very well, or didn't do well in the box office, so the studio like forgot about it. Like, it's odd to me because it is a pretty decent movie, an example of a post-apocalyptic future that is fun.
It's a decent movie. Like, it's like I think my core problem of the core story just not being all that there. Like, it's just kind of the basics of what this is, and that's it. Like, there's definitely a lot more story to put into this to really turn it into something that's great. And I think that's probably why it never caught on. It never became this big thing.
I'm saying people should watch it. I recommend it.
Oh no, if you're interested in, like, discovering more sci-fi from the 70s, that is definitely a solid watch. Like,
I think of some of the movies that we've watched for the 70s month or whatever. I think this is up there with probably the best one.
Well, if you're going to rate it, then what are you rating it?
I'm going to give it an 8. I think it's a really good film. I think it's, like I said, like, I think all the set pieces make sense. I like the structure. I like the, I think there is a 3-act structure in it, even if you didn't like feel the flow of it very well. I like I like the pacing. I think the score is really excellent, and the actors are way better than they should be for this movie. And yeah, I think it's a really good movie. It was a nice little hidden gem for me, so I'm gonna give it an 8.
Okay, I'm giving it a 7. I think it's good. I don't think it has that problem that a couple of these movies have had, where I don't really feel like I've gotten to know the characters well enough before they're actually going on their big thing in the last act. I feel like I've barely really gotten to know them, and I've barely learned who they are and why I should care about them. So it's missing that kind of element of it, and that's been kind of a running theme with some of these 70s movies that we've talked about, where I've had that problem. It's just, I don't know if that's necessarily just was how they did movies in the 70s, but then again, all the ones that have survived and are ones that we knew about because they're big and famous don't suffer from those problems, right? Like, all the ones that we do hear about, from the 70s that are household names that are still talked about and get 50 editions on every home video format because, like, here's the 30th anniversary.
I don't think it
edition.
needs to be famous to be great.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, but I think there's a reason why some of these movies aren't remembered and why we don't know about them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot on this list that of 70s sci-fi films that we're watching that are just like, what? What is this?
Yeah, like
We still have a couple more. We have no idea what they are.
of course, there's always a chance we're going to find some hidden gem that, for whatever reason, has been overlooked.
Yeah, and I think most of them have been getting the same like ratings, which is just like, it's good, not great, but good, and for a reason.
Well, this is something I said way back in like one of the first one of these we did, is that like these movies that are just good but not great don't get remembered because
Except for Death Race, a lot of people know Death Race.
Yeah, but that's arguably more of a cult, infamous style of a movie. But like, you know, like a lot of we remember a lot of movies in the past 20 years because we lived through them and because we experienced all of them as they came out. But the movies that were coming out in the 70s, like that were below a certain standard, that don't get talked about because like they're fine, but then, you know, no one's really talking about them.
No one in 20 years is going to be like, you know, a Simple Man. That was a good movie, but nobody talks about it anymore. I think that was like 4 years ago. I never saw it.
Simple. What one was that?
It was good.
Was that the Coen Brothers movie?
Maybe.
See,
Simple Man?
That may get talked about just because of Coen Brothers movie, but yeah.
Okay.
Your
what was the other one that came out around the same time and had a similar title?
A Serious Man?
Yeah. See, I already forgot.
Or is that the Coen Brothers movie and A Simple Man's the other one? I don't know. Whatever. One of them's a Coen Brothers movie, and I don't know which one it is.
They're both going to be forgotten in 20 years.
All right, well, I guess Tara's convinced this is some super influential movie from the 70s that no one knows, and I'm convinced that it's just a fine movie that had some things that might have carried on, but ultimately was forgotten because it's fine, it's good, but it's not amazing.
Yeah, okay. It's better than 20% Rotten Tomatoes. That's why Rotten Tomatoes is garbage.
I'll give you... Well, now see, it's not... This is the thing. See, when it's a movie that existed before Rotten Tomatoes existed, you can't really trust the ratings because typically they have much less to go on, and it tends to be like 3 DVD reviews or something like that. Like it's very murky when it comes to old movies. Now,
oh, it's just like the Leonard Maltin books translated. He didn't even do 5 stars. He only went up to 4. You can't trust that.
Oh yeah, people who rate it a 4 or like clearly deranged sex perverts or something. I don't even know what.
It was just a different time. But they didn't know there could be 5 stars at the time.
No, I don't
know about the sex perversion.
I don't trust them. Anyone who rates it at 4 stars, I don't trust.
I just never really agreed with Leonard Maltin.
I don't trust you or your philosophies in life or anything.
I was more of a Siskel person. Sometimes Ebert. Ebert tend to like the fun movies.
Yeah. They both hate slasher movies though, so I have to kind of...
They both love Halloween.
True.
You can watch the original Halloween review that they did on YouTube. I did it, and they don't like slasher films, but they said this is the exception. Like, they really love it.
Interesting. All right, well, so you give it an 8, I gave it a 7, which, you know, means for you it's your favorite of all these 70s movies, but actually with one possible exception. I think you might give God Told Me To higher.
I don't remember. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
just because it was so bizarre.
God Told Me To is the better movie though, let's be honest. It is the better movie.
I mean, they're different. They're so different.
Oh, I'm sorry. This does not have a stomach space vagina, thank you very much.
You're right. But that would have been perfect if it's like right in the middle of Yul Brynner when he's with some discharge.
All right, that is The Ultimate Warrior, and you can of course let us know what you think of the movie in the comments below. You can like and subscribe and ding the bell for notifications on the YouTubes. You can support us by rating the audio podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars, helps us out a lot. More people will find us that way. You also support us financially. We mentioned earlier on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, so go over there and see if you want to help us out that way. Otherwise, check out other content we do. Tara, why don't you promote something that also comes from MailFuzz TV?
Well, it's probably a bit late now, but I know you've worked really hard on the top 50 movies of the decade for all the Mild Fuzz crew, so you can, if you're curious what we think of the top 50 films of the decade for every person, you can check out the 10-part series that Peter has put together.
Which decade is that?
The 2010s.
I think by the time this goes up, I don't think you can just say of the decade and assume that you mean the one that just ended. I think it'll be, you have to specify. You have to specify 2010.
Who knows? Maybe the last episode hasn't come up yet. Maybe they're still being edited.
Oh, I hope it is. I hope it has, because I want to be done before I'm, in my 40s. But there you go. That is
it's a big project, so please check it out.
Yes, yes. But that has been the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction. Keep watching science fiction films, guys. A computer. At Salsa.
Etc. Etc. Etc.